Hey, you wild women. Wow, I cannot believe it's already December. And I always say that to every month, but this month in particular, because it just kind of showed up. And we've had an incredible fall, a beautiful fall. I hope that is the same for you. But what I realize about this time of the year is that we're creeping closer to a whole new year. And as you know, in business, we tend to look at the rolling over of December 31st into January 1st as a whole new business season. For many, it is. And maybe if that's what your fiscal year end is, then we just know that things kind of restart. When it comes to like incorporations and small businesses, our incorporation dates restart then too. So there's a lot of stuff that kind of kicks off in the new year. But for me, as I start to use this season, and I've already started this, as doing a massive purge of my life, because as we know, when we accumulate things in life, when we accumulate stuff in our house or stuff in our business, it ends up being something that collects dust. And if there's stuff in your business or your home life that collects dust, it means that it requires attention. It requires dusting. It requires to be cleaned or moved or maintained or upgraded. We all know this. And I bet you right now, 30,000 foot view, if you looked at stuff that's happening in your business or even in your personal life, there's some things you need to purge. And so I have a question for you. What if I asked you this? Are there 10 things off the top of your head right now that you could probably completely delete? Does your business feel bloated and sluggish? You're probably drowning in a bunch of BS and a lot of broken systems and a lot of just having things for the sake of having things. So in this holiday quickie episode, I want to chat about how you can purge your business BS to start the new year off on the right foot, because we all like a clean slate. And I'm talking about digital resets. I'm talking about content cleans and time reclaims and money focus. So we're going to go through this really quickly, but I want you to take a pen and paper, or if you're driving and you can't, just take note of this, that there are certain things that are going to go, yeah, I can do that. Come back to this episode because I want you to write it down. But let's start off by talking about the 4 things you can do today, right now, to start your new year off in the right foot, to clean house, right? This isn't spring cleaning. This is new year cleaning. So first is your digital reset. This is one thing that I love to do the most, is unsubscribing to literally everything. We know this when we purchase things online, we forget to uncheck the box that's automatically checked about subscribing to their new newsletter. I do this all the time. And I'm like, I've never subscribed to them, but I did purchase from them. There are software tools out there, if you go search for them, that can help you understand which newsletters you are subscribed to. You want to unsubscribe to pretty much everything. And the best way to do this, to decide what it is you actually want to learn is, or who you want to hear from the most, is make a list. And I urge you to do only 3 newsletters. Who are the top 3 people today you want to learn from? And sometimes you get like those unsubscribe notifications. It's almost like it's an insult. But knowing that, I don't know if you're anything like me, but I hesitate to unsubscribe to some of my friends' newsletters, even though I don't read them because I'm busy. It's okay. Go and unsubscribe, because this is just stuff that accumulates in your inbox. The other thing you need to do is making sure, like, I have folders upon folders in my Gmail. Go in and like delete those folders that you don't use. All of those newsletters you think you're going to read, or just go and get rid of them. You're not going to read them. If you haven't referred to them in the past 3 to 6 months, get rid of them. In this digital reset detox, I also like to make sure that I'm auditing all like recurring payments. I am killing zombie subscriptions. I remember one time back in my first agency days, we had I think it was for HubSpot, where you have seats for people. And we also had Slack seats. So we're paying like an extra $10 to $20 a month per employee for certain seats. And as they either like transitioned away from the company or were let go, we forgot to cancel their subscriptions. So over the course of a few months, this added up to being hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So go check your bank statements, cross-reference the things that are being charged. This is even old URLs. Like, let's be honest, that domain that you bought 10 years ago, like babycakes.com, whatever, just do not renew it. Now, if you know that you have domains that could potentially become something, which I do, I sit on those because for $30 a year, and I could put them into get a brokerage to actually sell them for me. But really think of all those things that you're digitally automatically renewing and just stop those subscriptions altogether. So auditing recurring payments, delete any unused software. If you haven't used it in the last couple months, you're probably not. This includes apps on your phone that you need to go in and delete and unsubscribe to. Just start doing that. Because here's the thing. If you end up really missing it, if you end up, oh crap, I actually did use that app or I did use that software, it's so easy to subscribe to. But sometimes you just don't know. Go take a peek. What are you subscribed to, whether it's payment or not, even people on social media, and unsubscribe to them. So talking about social, because this is kind of tied into like the content clean out too, is don't follow people out of sense of obligation. And it's okay to unfollow people too, because you are really trying, like when you follow somebody, you're actually subscribing technically to the content they share. And if you don't like them or you disagree with them or the content is just not serving you at this point in your life, just go unfollow. You can even mute them. You can mute them. If you feel like there's a sense of obligation to still staying in touch, you can still mute them. So go check it out. Do this for every single one of your social media accounts. There's also a tool and Instagram as an example, where you can look at the followers that should be removed. So these are people where, accounts have been deactivated or deleted, or maybe they're zombie accounts, or they could be automated accounts. You can have them removed as followers. Yes, it's going to affect your follower count, but it'll increase your engagement. So that's one thing to consider too. Okay, so content cleanup, websites. Websites aren't dead. You probably link to your website in your social accounts. You probably link to your website. Maybe it's on your business card if you still use that, or you tell people on podcasts, go and visit reneewarren.com. And if you haven't actually gone in and updated the content or the links or your packages or your programs, you look unorganized. Even if you have low traffic to your website, but you're still telling people to go and visit it, make sure it's up to date. It doesn't have to be bulky. It doesn't have to be confusing. Make sure that everything you still link to, make sure that everything you still sell is valid and not something from like 2 years ago. I go to those websites and I'm like, really? Like there's some high profile people online who in their social media bio say, go visit my website, and their account or their websites are still just old. They haven't been updated. Their content's old. They link to maybe dead podcasts, or the links are broken. Like go do a complete audit on your social, a complete audit on your website. I just did this the other day where I updated my bio, I updated all my headshots, I updated all the information on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Threads. While some of these accounts I'm not active on, if I still have a profile there, I want to make sure that the content is up to date. So website audit is important to make sure that you're testing every link, making sure that your privacy policy, your terms and conditions, all that stuff at the bottom of your website is up to date. It's still relevant. You want to check all the subscriptions you have for the website, the stuff that you're paying for that you might not need anymore. You want to verify contact information. Is your phone number still used? Is it the right email address? Do you have an assistant? Should it be him or hers email address there instead? And then when it comes to like your business social media profiles, you want to do a massive purge here. This is going and like archiving old content that no longer is relevant. Now, if you look at Instagram, for example, people only scroll back so far. They very rarely go back more than like a month or so. It depends on how often you post. But maybe there's content that's still getting views, and these are offers that you no longer offer. You should be archiving that content. You should be making sure that someone's experience with your personal brand or brand online, every touch point is as up to date as possible. You want to remove any outdated pins. Like if you have stuff pinned to the top of your accounts, if you have stuff pinned on Twitter or X, or you can still do that. Make sure that stuff is still relevant. You want to archive old Facebook groups or like Mighty Network or Circle groups that you have that you just don't use. Like these are still things that are actively related to you. That is something for you to manage. Start unsubscribing. Start deleting those things. Email system cleanup. Gosh, I'm still working on this. Think about how somebody comes into your to your email. So, right, they get on your newsletter. How do they do that? And what is the automation sequence after that? Because if the automation sequence is still offering something you no longer offer, then it's going to be pretty irrelevant to them. And it's going to give them this weird experience in working with you or following you because you're talking about something you no longer offer anymore. Just make sure everything is up to date. Maybe the initial couple emails is a story that's kind of old that needs to be updated. Just go and update that content. It's not really hard. You can maybe just tweak some things, update some paragraphs, some PSs, and some links. Go take a full audit of all of the touch points of people entering to get on your newsletter. And then you want to make sure like all of your email signature links and signatures are up to date. You want to delete any unused templates is another thing that we went through. So we use Gmail templates for pitching and following up. And we have so many templates we used over the years with old clients. Go in and delete those or update them. So think about every single experience used digitally. How can you optimize that for a clearer, fresher restart for when January 1st comes? So now is your time reclaim. How are you going to get your time back? This is one thing I just did was a meeting audit. I no longer will allow somebody to book an hour-long meeting with me. There has never in the history of my experience, other than podcast recordings or other than being and teaching in someone's summit or mastermind, that an hour-long meeting is required. What happens is that if you're allotted an hour, people will fill that time with whatever just to fill the hour. Sales calls, even coaching calls, calls with your assistant, you name it, should only be 30 minutes, maybe a stretch to 45. But we think we have to book something for an hour because that's just common standard, common practice in business. No. And those active 30-minute meetings can probably be 15-minute meetings. And those 15-minute meetings can probably be an email or a Voxer message or a WhatsApp message. You really want to reclaim your time. I have a friend of mine, I love her dearly. She believes in in-person meetings for everything. I don't. and I don't because there's commute time. There's all these things. So it's like wasted time on the fringes of these meetings that you could be used doing something else. So I much prefer a phone call when I'm in commute. I much prefer a Zoom call so we can put time constraints. I don't have to commute and I can get my calls done in time blocks and I'm not going to be stuck in traffic or worried about somebody running late. Yes, there are instances when in-person meetings are absolutely important. Don't get me wrong. But for the most part, I always default to 30-minute Zoom calls. You know what? I get so much done in that time. So when you look at the recurring meetings you have in your calendar, this could be with your team, with clients, with vendors, with manufacturers. Rate each recurring meeting from a 1 to 5 value. How important are they? A 5 is like, keep that in your calendar. But then you got to think, if it's a 5, does it need to be an hour? Could it be 30 minutes or 20 minutes? And then so each one of those meetings, anything that is a 4 or 5, keep. Anything less than that, try to delete altogether or try to find another way to have this conversation. So it could be reporting with a client. I remember we used to have weekly calls with our clients to talk about the work that we did that week with the wins and where we faced some roadblocks. Then I was like, we're just meeting for the sake of meeting. Why don't we do a weekly Friday morning email that summarizes all this stuff? And if you have any questions, you can email me or you can text me. And not only did it save me an hour a week, but they got the clarity they needed because all the information they were seeking was right there in a report that they have all access to 24/7. So maybe some of the stuff you think is a meeting can just be a quick email report. I know some of you might have clients because you run an agency or you work for an agency or you offer services like that. And they think it was something that you included as part of the sale in landing that deal. I used to do that too. But I will say this, people who hire agencies, they're busy people. There's a reason why they hired you. And they could also probably use that extra 30 minutes to an hour back in their time. So also know that you're doing this for them. So just know a lot of the stuff that we meet for doesn't either have to happen as a meeting or it could be a really short meeting or simplified with really simple reporting structures. So you want to rate all your meetings. Anything that is a 4 or below, you cut. And you're shortening those calls And every single meeting has an agenda for it. My assistant and I, we meet twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays, and we have a meeting agenda. We use the same thing and we just update our tasks. We follow the template and then we update our action items at the bottom. We do them on Monday, we review on Thursday. We follow the agenda because it's so easy to go off course. And each agenda item shouldn't be more than 5 minutes because the meeting is to report or to get clarity around something. Now, sometimes Morgan and I will have a working meeting, which happens to be Mondays. So our meeting today actually went over an hour, but we ended up knocking off a lot of the things that were on our action list too, because it was a working meeting that we would work through together. Another thing you can do to reclaim your time is a revenue day planning. So this is looking at like maybe a time on a Tuesday or a Thursday that you're doing just for sales. And all the activities you do on those days are just sales focused activities. So maybe there's no internal meetings on these days. Maybe this is when you schedule your follow-up blocks and you're really protecting your peak energy hours here. So like for me, when we had the agency, we didn't have meetings on Mondays or Fridays. Fridays an absolute no, because Fridays were the days where we would just make up for the lost time when the kind of week got away from us and we couldn't complete our tasks. So on those revenue day plannings, these are structured days where everything you do is about revenue. This could be checking your bank account, paying off statements, all this stuff. You have those blocks, they're finance blocks, revenue blocks, and that is your protected time. You also need to set boundaries around this time, right? One thing you can say, because I know some people are like, well, how do you say this, Renee, to clients? Is you just say things like, I'm restructuring my calendar to serve my clients better. You have to say it gracefully. You have to say no to people. By being open, dialogue, and having that communication makes it a heck of a lot easier to actually get stuff done. And then if there's emergency protocol, then you understand kind of the cadence and the system on how that happens. For example, for us internally and when we had agency clients, we always said a phone call means there's an emergency. A text message means it's urgent. WhatsApp or Voxer means like, can you please get to this in the next 24 hours? And an email was usually just to include big attachments or some bigger chunks of text, but it rarely ever got to email. We always worked out of our project management system. So create the contact or the communication protocol for you, your team, your family, your clients. So it's like, if this, then that. So they get a clear understanding of how to reach you in the event of emergency, or if they just need your feedback on something. And I remember when I used to give tasks, when I ran my last agency, was I would give them the task over email and I would put a due date at the bottom. I'd say, I need this by Friday. And then they put it in their task. Right? So there's an urgent, yes, I need this by Friday, 100%, which means urgent by Friday supersedes anything else you might have going on that day that's not urgent. So you have to set those boundaries around your time, boundaries around revenue, boundaries around what you subscribe to. So here's a task management reset. I love doing this. Is delete any tasks that are not serving you that are older than 60 days. You should have no more than 3 priorities per day. So part of what I do in the mornings too at 6 a.m. is at 5:30 a.m. I journal. But what happens is like that free flow journaling ends up being my task list sometimes because my brain just needs to get it out, right? It needs to get it out on paper, and which is super helpful. But then what you're doing is really prioritizing those things that I need to get done today, meaning that if there's only 3 things that I get done today, and these are the 3 things, then I have to be okay with the rest of the way the day goes, that I feel a sense of accomplishment. So for me, it was update our Pink Skirt Project event sponsorship package, record this episode. Those are my 2 things. My 3rd thing is really cool. We're actually spending the afternoon going out and actually handing out the checks that we wrote for some local charities and organizations. So it's super cool. Anyways, 3 priorities for the day. And this is like, these are changing priorities. For the most part, it's not like eat well, drink water, and work out. You should be doing that every day. I'm talking about like update sponsorship package, send a proposal to so-and-so, have a team stand-up meeting regarding these 3 concerns. Like they have to be very specific because then you take them and you schedule them into your calendar. And the way that our business works is that every task you have, your 3 priority tasks for the day, you open up your calendar and you slide them in where you're going to get them done. And then you tell your team. So my assistant knows that I'm recording this episode at this moment right now. She's waiting for me to have this done because it's scheduled in my calendar. So you also need to clear out your someday and maybe lists. We used to have an email address when I had my first agency where it was like ideas@onwardly.com, where any crazy idea we had for like something internal at the office or like a marketing idea that wasn't urgent, we would email that email address. And once a month, somebody from the team would go in and check all the ideas. It was kind of cool. And then you need to create a not doing right now list. So kind of like the Eisenhower matrix, right? Like what are the things you're not doing anymore? And be open with your team. Be open with your assistant or somebody that reports to you. Say, listen, this thing that I do, I don't want to do that anymore. It's just a time suck for me. It's not moving the needle. It's either somebody else does it or we don't do it at all. And I guarantee you can find at least 1 or 2 of those things. Some things you feel obligated to do, but you don't have to do them. It's all about delegation. Okay, so the last thing to focus on is your money focus. This is important because if you're running a business, the whole point is to make money. And to make money also means to be profitable. So you need to look at how all of this stuff stacks up to profitability, where your North Star being, what is the ultimate thing you want to achieve in life? Most of us, it's freedom. We want our health. We want our wealth. We want time with our family. So everything we do in business is to help us be profitable, be doing something we love doing so that we can gain time back with our friends, family, and loved ones. So this stuff's the boring stuff. But let me tell you, a lot of you got this wrong because a lot of you are so afraid to ask for money, especially for work that you've already done. Time to get over that. So you need to do an invoice collection system. What is it? So this is templates for following up with late payments, when to stop doing work for non-workers, setting up automated billing, setting up automated follow-ups and terms and conditions. With clients, I would put in our agreements, they would sign a contract that would stipulate all the things we do and do not do. Now, we got better at this over time because we gained the experience knowing that, if a client doesn't pay their invoice, because we had net zero terms, and we always trusted the client. They signed the agreement, so it means they must pay me, which is also a fallacy. I've been burned so many times. So net zero terms means that they pay before we begin the work. So essentially, it was almost like a debt for us in services owed, which is fine. It's a great way for cash flow, by the way, and really important with service-based business. And there were clients, we started to see this pattern over time. Over years, I could see it. They might pay the first 1 or 2 invoices on time. And then the second invoice was like, a couple weeks late. And then the third invoice kept getting later and later. And it was consistent and so predictable that third invoice would not be paid. Now, this happened on a handful of occasions. And so what we decided was after 2 weeks, even though we've followed up with the invoice and either ignored it or came up with an excuse, we would stop work. You'd stop work. And you know what? We were the gatekeepers to some accounts. We were the gatekeepers to some stuff. So eventually they would sweat and be like, okay, we'll pay you, because our agreement was that. And it's okay to force that. It's okay to cross that finish line if that's what it takes, because they owe you that. If that's in the contract of how they're going to pay you or when. So be okay with setting those terms. I have so many people that are just so afraid, especially women, and when it comes to money and invoicing and finances, it's like, will $500 be okay, even though you just billed somebody $2,500 for the same service? Don't negotiate your value. You know what your worth is. Go and collect the money. Set up systems for this. Have those emails come through. Be on time. Your invoicing should be automated. If the invoicing goes out on the 1st, it goes out on the 1st. If something's due on the 1st, then you send out that invoice 1 or 2 weeks ahead of time with the due date of the 1st. Stop everything else right now. If this system of yours is totally messed up, go out and fix your monetization systems, because it is the reason why you're in business. And stop shaming and guilting yourself out of you thinking you don't deserve this money, because you do. So also look at, like, if you're in a service-based business, do a client profitability analysis. spreadsheet of time versus revenue, of what clients cost us the most money. I remember when we had Onboardly, we were a quote demand marketing agency. And in those days, we did social media, content marketing, and public relations. And we were burning out because we were offering too much. So we finally had enough data to pull back to analyze that we were more profitable in doing just public relations. The moment we stopped offering social media and content marketing and we doubled down on PR was the moment we went from like 20% profit margins some months to 60%. And we were making more money and we were more profitable because we stopped being everything to everyone. You got to get specific on that. So do a client and even service profitability analysis. I worked with a naturopathic doctor a few years ago and I helped coach her through her service offering. And I go, what are people actually showing up for? Like, what is your most profitable offer? And she said this, and it was like 40% of what she did, but she had a million other things that were barely sold. It still took up space on our website. It still cost training with her team. It still cost marketing time, and you name it. When she went in and cut that, not only did her profitability go up, but her service value went up. People said she was the best at what she did. And then she had the time to really understand her customers and what they wanted and what they needed. So she was able to integrate and produce those services for them because she wasn't doing everything to everyone. You know, when you go to a restaurant and it's like, we're in a Mexican, Italian, Peruvian infusion restaurant, and you open up the menu and there's literally 200 things. You're overwhelmed. You're like, well, what are you? Decide. Are you Italian? Are you Mexican? What is this? When it's the restaurants that have the smaller menus, the more succinct menus with beautiful pictures actually do well. So think about your menu. What are you cutting from it to actually be more profitable? So you need to do your year-end financial cleanup. Guess what? We're coming to the end of the year. If this is your fiscal year-end, but definitely personal income tax, start, if you haven't already started, is cleaning up those files. Start collecting invoices. Start collecting receipts. Start going through that stuff. Do not wait till April. Do not wait till the last minute. You want to get this stuff organized now, where in a perfect world on January 1st, you're sending your bookkeeper or your accountant a Dropbox folder of everything for the year. How amazing would that be? So categorize your expenses. Make sure that you have a system for all of your receipts, digitize it. There's like HubDoc. There's a bunch of stuff you can use where you can just forward receipts to a certain email address. You want to look at your profit first percentages. What are the things that are helping you achieve your profits, right? Products, services, promotions, big times of year. Keep doing what's working. And make sure you have a tax preparation checklist. This is the boring stuff, I know, but right now go into your inbox and search the word invoice or receipt. There's probably stuff in there that you haven't even reviewed or tackled yet. Start picking away at this now, because you got to set up a system to do better in the new year. This is the headache time of year. We're going into a busy season of holidays. There's year-end wrap-up, but then also January 1st, January 2nd, what's on our mind are taxes. And then we delay. It's February, now it's March, now it's April, now you're late. Next year is going to be the first year you're actually organized when it comes to your taxes. Okay, so remember, this is all about simplicity, because simplicity equals scalability. So scalability, there's a word for you. You want to do a digital reset. You want to clean up your content. You want to reclaim your time, and you want to have a money focus to move it past the finish line, to have your most profitable year yet, to have a more relaxing year, because you're going to be less for everybody. You're going to be more for you. You want to implement at least one thing a week. And there's stuff that you can pick away at every day now. So here's the homework that I have for you this week. Is go in and do a time audit of all the stuff. Do a profitability audit of the things that you sell, and start unsubscribing to things today that you no longer need in your awareness, you no longer need to wrap your energy around. And this will help you purge your business and your personal life of all the BS that's kind of bloating your system. Good luck with all of this. And let me tell you, it feels so good when it's done. Until next time, ladies, peace out.